Hello, everybody. This is Jessica Pickens with Comet Over Hollywood, and I'm delighted to interview film historian Jeremy Arnold. Today, we are here to talk about his revised and expanded version of Christmas in the Movies. Jeremy is an expert on Christmas films. So, Jeremy, tell us what inspired you to write a book about Christmas movies.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to talk to you as always. So there have been two editions of this book. The first one came out in 2018, and then there's an expanded version that came out in 2023. And so when I did the first edition, it actually was not my idea to do a book on Christmas movies. I had done a book for TCM and Running Press, The Essentials, which I think was one of the first, if not the first, under that series of film books. And when I finished, my editor, Cindy Sapala, she said that TCM and Running Press had this idea to do a book on Christmas movies, and would I be interested? And the first thing I said was, I don't think so. Thanks anyway. Because my first reaction was Christmas movies, a book, it's going to be kind of frivolous, kind of like not, it's not really serious. And didn't, it didn't strike me as serious enough. But then I started thinking about it and I realized that, first of all, the classic Christmas movies that we all know and love, they're great movies, most of
Mhm.
them. And uh, and I also then started thinking about, well, what is a Christmas movie? And that is the question that inspired me to then say, yes, I would love to do this book, because the whole process of doing the book was sort of a journey to discover how I define Christmas movies and how the whole idea of definition plays into the debates we have every year about Christmas movies
Right.
that we sort of loathe and love at the same time. And so I watched a lot of these films and found a lot of films that did not fit the stereotypical definition of a Christmas movie, but that I still thought were Christmas movies based on a specific definition that I came up with. So I mean, I made it sort of an intellectual exercise, but I also knew it's a book about Christmas movies. It's got to be bright and cheerful and inviting. And I want it to be a really beautiful book
Right.
physically. And with the expanded edition in particular, which has much better photo reproductions, I was very happy with that. So that's how it came about.
So I love Christmas movies, but I just love Christmas in general. And so I'm interested in what your definition is because I've started on this hunt for Christmas in films that are not Christmas movies. So like Hot Rods to Hell, Psycho. It's not Christmas, but it's set during the holiday season, and
Yep.
you see that snippet of decorations, or like Sent You in a Way, though I guess people do consider that as a Christmas movie. So what is your definition?
My definition is any movie in which the holiday season or some recognizable aspect of the Hollywood season plays a meaningful role in the story, a meaningful role in the storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
and into the audience takeaway from the film. It's got to somehow have it be important to the story. It can't just be a setting, can't just be a background. Um, Although I will say that any movie with Christmas in it, as you just
Yeah.
said, is fun to watch at Christmas time. I
Right.
mean, I totally agree with that. Um, and I like to watch some of them too for that reason, but I just don't consider them all to be Christmas movies.
Yeah, like the fuzzy pink nightgown is set during Christmas, but it's definitely not a Christmas movie. Which
Take your
is
word on that one. I don't know about
the
that.
Jane Russell movie. I
Oh,
I
I haven't
figured you've
seen it.
seen everything. So,
I'll have to
um,
add it to my list.
how many movies did you? I know this is not one of the questions I planned on asking, but how many movies did you screen
Mhm.
to get to this, if you remember? And then how many like did you have to axe from including in the book?
Um, I don't remember in particular because this was like 2016, 2017 when I started doing this. Um, but I would guess that I probably looked at like 60 or 70
Yeah.
movies. And there are lots of lists of Christmas movies out there on the internet and so forth. And so I kind of use them as a guide just to remind myself of movies that are out there and to maybe pick up some titles I hadn't heard about. Most of the
Mhm.
time, they I didn't they weren't really Christmas movies. Um, But yeah, so it wasn't that hard as I remember to whittle it down to the first book was just 30 movies. Um, uh, but there were some that had to go for space reasons that were absolutely Christmas movies and should have been in the book. Like It Happened on Fifth Avenue. I got
Yeah,
a lot of complaints. Why isn't that in the book? Um,
people are writing for It Happened on Fifth Avenue.
it's it's in the new one though.
It is an
Um,
XP.
so yeah, so I did have to act some just because of space. The first book
Right.
was envisioned as a much physically smaller book, and there just wasn't enough room.
Are there others you wanted to include that you couldn't, that maybe even aren't in the extended version?
That's a good question. Well, there's one that I mention in the author's note, which is the James Bond movie on Her
Oh, right.
Majesty's Secret Service, which
Yeah.
is a movie that I really love. And I did kind of wish that I could have written about it as a full-fledged chapter in the book.
Yeah.
Um, but it is one of these films that's kind of on the edge. And then I realized this is actually a perfect example of a movie to cite when I write about how hard it is to define Christmas movies and
Yeah.
how how it's something that is not always so clear cut. So I do write about it for a few sentences in the author's note in my explanation of a definition. So I was glad to work that in. And I got a photo in there too, which I
Yeah.
was very happy about.
You
Um,
listen to Do You Know How Christmas Trees Were Grown in your Christmas music rotation?
no, that is actually one of my least favorite aspects of that film.
So one highlight you have in your book that I wanted to mention is that 1947 is a really special year for Christmas movies with It Happened on Fifth Avenue, Miracle on 34th Street, Bishop's Wife. Talk to me a little bit about why you think, I mean, I think I probably know, but I want to hear your thoughts about why maybe this was so prolific as far as Christmas movies go.
Well, 1947 was 2 years after the end of World War II. And it generally, in that era, it took maybe a year or 2 years for a movie to get to the screen
Mm-hmm.
once, sometimes a lot quicker, let's be honest. But in general, a couple of years um, for a movie to go from conception to release, it just struck me that World War II was an event that defined the 1940s, and it had a very significant effect on family life all across
Mm-hmm.
America. The first half of the decade, the war was ripping families apart as men and women went off to war. And the second half of the decade was about families trying to reconstitute themselves, sometimes without the return of those loved ones.
Right.
So, and the ones that did return sometimes had, great psychological troubles. And, that's one of the origins of film noir, is that sort of attitude, that feeling in the air that was defining so much of society. And so I think that Christmas movies are actually the flip side to film noir.
Mm-hmm.
They were both to some degree influenced by the same event, World War II and the post-World War II landscape in America. But Christmas movies take the idea of the family unit and link them to the holidays somehow. So you get Christmas popping up in all kinds of movies, many different genres, and they're often released throughout the year, not just at Christmas time.
Right.
And to me, that really speaks to the idea that Hollywood and screenwriters and producers, they were thinking of the Christmas season as a storytelling device and a way to really inject meaning into whatever movie that they were making. They were not making Christmas movies. No one, the term didn't exist in the
Right.
1940s. Frank Capra never said, I'm going to make a Christmas movie with Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
They were dramas, they were musicals, they were romantic comedies, whatever, westerns even. um, and the whole idea of Christmas movie as a thing and eventually a genre, would hazard. That didn't come till decades later. So it's a term that we've retroactively applied to a group of movies
Hmm.
that were made in the past, and they're still being made too. But really, the reason that they were so prolific throughout the 1940s, and in particular 1947, I really think is the effect of the war on family life and how that was top of mind uh, to Americans like all over the place
Yeah.
on every level of the social spectrum. Everyone was affected by it. So it's only natural that movies would start to mirror that feeling in the air.
Right. And everybody's finally able to be out together and less rationing. And that's a really interesting tie from Christmas movies to film noir. I hadn't really thought about that. And of course, we have some Christmas noir as well. So it's always interesting when that happy time is tied with that darker period as well.
I mean,
Um,
the way I like to put it is that film noir pulls characters down into the underbelly of their psyches and of society. And Christmas movies tend to lift characters up. They transform them into better versions of themselves. Noir pulls them down into worse versions of
right.
themselves. And so it's actually really fascinating if you think about it like that. And I do have a chapter in the book on film noir
Yeah.
and Christmas movies. And um, it was one of my favorites, but I do think that most noirs that have Christmas in them are not Christmas movies. There are
Yeah.
very, very few exceptions.
Yeah.
This is, again, to my definition. People can define it their own way, and they're all fun to watch at Christmas time. But to me, uh, there's really only one or two that really qualify.
So one thing I love that you have in your book are some lesser known Christmas movies. Two that I really enjoyed that I might be one of the few that I've seen. Miracle on Main Street from 1939. I don't know how you watched it. I got a bootleg, I think, on eBay. And then The Cheaters, which is kind of an interesting movie. So wanted to get your thoughts on some of these under the radar Christmas movies that you really enjoyed, and then how you chose to highlight those two movies.
Well, I think I saw Miracle on Main Street. It was either a bootleg that I acquired somewhere, or it was a terrible quality
Yeah.
version on YouTube or somewhere else on the internet. I can't remember exactly. That might actually be coming to like a proper DVD
Oh my
release.
gosh.
Um,
'Cause I
so
like it a lot.
yeah, no, it's a really lovely movie. It's so unusual and offbeat. And Margot, who stars in it, we all
Yeah.
remember her from Lost Horizon. I think she really carries the movie. She is the star of this movie. And the reason I wanted to include it's the earliest film in the book because there really weren't a lot of Christmas movies made during the 30s. Yes, there's a Christmas Carol, which I address in the
Sure.
section on all the Christmas Carol movies. In fact, there are two versions of A Christmas Carol, a British one and an American
Right.
one. But beyond that, there aren't a lot of movies in the 30s that could really be called Christmas movies. And again, 1939, 1940, there were some big ones. It's the war is starting. So this
Hmm.
idea of family is really coming to the fore. But I wanted to include Miracle on Main Street and The Cheaters, partly because I knew that they were going to be titles that almost no one will have seen. And
Yeah,
if I were picking up this book, I'd be happy to find something I didn't know about before.
absolutely.
So I wanted to do that. But I also wanted to highlight the fact that Christmas as a story element was being applied in Hollywood across the board, not just A-level movies with Jimmy Stewart and Natalie Wood and Maureen O'Hara, but little B movies made by smaller studios, um, that and which were coming out all at around the same time. So it just sort of proves the point about Christmas movies in the 40s. A Miracle on Main Street was made, I'm trying to remember, it was made independently and the distributor went under, and then it was sort of a negative pickup by I think Columbia and Fox. There was a Spanish language version that was
Mhm.
distributed by one and an English language version by the other. I would love to see the Spanish
Yeah,
language
that'd be
version, but I
incredible.
don't know that it exists anymore.
Right.
I've looked into that and I haven't found anything. Um, and Margot stars in both and did the
Yeah.
Spanish language herself. And The Cheaters is uh, I think it's Republic. I'm suddenly blanking.
That sounds,
But it's kind of long for a B movie. It's like 80, 85 minutes, which
yeah,
most Bs in that era are like 65 minutes. Um, but and it's not a great movie, but it's a very interesting one in the way that it uses the Dickens story of A Christmas Carol to influence to help transform an entire family of sort of greedy, not very honorable people. And the way A Christmas Carol comes into it is they sort of take in a, um, a forgotten man type, like in My Man Godfrey.
yeah,
There's a lot of similarities actually between the two films,
yeah. There are, isn't there?
and the cast too.
Mm,
Um, and so this character, who's like a washed-up Broadway actor, he's so aghast at the way this family is behaving, trying to swindle a woman out of her inheritance, that at a certain point he recites the story of A Christmas Carol and recites part of the actual text, and that is it's a very powerful moment that actually affects the family listening to it as if they were watching or reading A Christmas Carol proper.
yeah.
So it's kind of a bizarre way of incorporating the story into the film, but it works pretty well.
Yeah, that is pretty similar. I haven't seen it in a couple years. I like it just because it's different, but is it the best? No, but I still enjoy it. What are some other under the radar Christmas movies that you wish more people have seen?
Um, Whenever someone asks me a question like this, I always think it depends who I'm talking to.
That's true.
That will determine what movie I say. To sort of the like average movie fan who is not obsessed about this era of films like you and I are,
Yeah,
and maybe they only know a handful, like a Casablanca and movies like that. I always tell them, remember the night.
yeah,
Barbara Stanwyck, Fred
absolutely.
McMurray, great movie. And it's always been a mystery to me as to why it never became a thing like It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on
Yeah.
34th Street, because it is very, very strongly a Christmas film and really charming. And it is well known now to harder core film fans. It's
Mhm.
not a rarity, but to other people, it is. To
Right.
the harder core film fans, I could pick something like The Cheaters, or Miracle on Main Street, but there is actually a big budget A-level movie from 1944 that never gets shown for some reason, and that is I'll Be Seeing You with
Oh,
Ginger
yeah.
Rogers and Joseph Cotton.
I love that movie.
It's a wonderful film, and it's on DVD.
Yeah,
I think it's only been on TCM once or twice. It is
right.
not in the regular rotation. There's some rights issues. I think it's hard to screen for some reason. Um, but it is a really, really beautiful film that knocked my socks off. Ginger Rogers is at her peak of her
Yeah.
acting ability. Joseph Cotton is really at his peak as well. And it actually is a film that specifically is about the effects of coming home from World War
Yeah.
II, in part.
It's that PTSD that you don't always see in classic films. I love it because it also kind of has a so Since You and I is my favorite film. And in a way, it's kind of like, in my view, a sister film because they both have Joseph Cotton and Shirley
Yep.
Temple. And Shirley Temple is such a little brat in this movie.
Yeah.
But it's so good. And Joseph Cotton, of course, is so good because he's wonderful in everything.
He is. It's funny, the studio, which was it Samuel Goldwyn, I believe, they really played up in the press the idea that this was Shirley Temple's first non-child role. There
Interesting.
were a lot of articles and media blitzes highlighting this fact. Like, this is a grown-up Shirley Temple, not an adult, but not
Right.
a teenager. Um, so yeah, and there's when Ginger Rogers, who comes to visit her family, and her sister is played by Shirley Temple, she says, "Oh, I almost didn't recognize you," and that's very much a wink to the audience of the time, seeing a
Yeah, that's
new
funny.
Shirley Temple.
I might have to watch this after we hang up. I'm like wanting to watch it again. Also, this is a very random question, but because you were talking about A Christmas Carol, there's so many different, there's traditional Christmas Carol tellings, there's non-traditional. What's your favorite? Is it Susan Lucci?
Um, I, I I usually say it's the 1951 Alastair Sim version,
Yeah.
which is just a really great movie. But this year I'm going to say The Muppet Christmas
Oh
Carol.
yeah.
Every time I see that movie, I am blown away at how faithful it is to Dickens
Yeah.
while also being faithful to the spirit of the Muppets. And it gives us what we want and expect from the Muppets. And it blends them so well. I think it is, and it's become a very beloved film, but I still
Mhm.
think it's really underrated. It really
Yeah.
needs to be taken a little more seriously as just a great work of art and entertainment.
Yeah. I
And
just love every person.
Michael Caine plays it straight, and he's one of the best Scrooges I've seen on screen.
He is great. Yeah. That one, the musical with Albert Finney, I get some of those songs stuck in my head, and that's not a great thing. Um, so wanted to see, so one, where can people buy your book if they're interested?
Yes, well, it's available in the usual places like Amazon. Uh, it is. I don't know. I don't think Barnes and Nobles is carrying it right now in physical stores. But if anyone would be interested in buying it from Larry Edmonds Bookstore in Hollywood, he's
Yes,
got signed copies that I've done, and it's just a great bookstore to support because it's
absolutely.
a very, very old bookstore devoted 100% to movies, to books about movies, and it's been there for like 80 years or something.
Yes, I always
Um,
look to support them.
so yes, either it's also available on Amazon as a Kindle edition.
And are you going to be doing any film screenings this season? Do you know yet, or that you're able to share?
Yes. Well, for people in the Los Angeles area, on Saturday the 29th, I'm introducing a screening of Miracle on 34th Street
Ooh, fun.
at the Old Town Music Hall in El Segundo, which is a really charming vintage movie house. And it's also always beautifully decorated for the Christmas season. And then in Washington, D.C., in the days right before Christmas, I'm from Washington originally, and I'm going back
Okay.
home there for the holiday. At the American Film Institute, AFI Silver Theater, which shows new movies and repertory films, they have a holiday classics series that I helped program. And I'll be introducing, I think, 11 or 12 screenings over 4 days, um, including, let's see, Home Alone, Christmas in Connecticut,
Oh, those are fun.
um, Die Hard, um, the French film Joyeux Noël from
Mhm.
2005, which is a real favorite of mine, and the James Bond movie On Her Majesty's Secret
Oh,
Service,
that'll
which
be
is
fun.
always fun to see on a big screen.
Yes, I saw that TCM with George Lazenby. Was that what, 2015? So that was fun to see there in person.
I was at that screening too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great.
Anything else that you have to add or want to share about Christmas movies, especially as we lead into the season?
I guess the only thing is just when it comes back to the issue of definition, um, because Christmas movies are not a genre, people are free to define the term as they want. I
Hmm.
mean, people are free to define anything as they want, but if someone says Stagecoach is not a Western, it's fine. They can say that, but I would just like move on to the next person in the room because it's like this person's on another planet. Or if someone says Singing in the Rain is not a musical, I mean, you just can't say that. They are absolutely are. Christmas movies don't, someone could very legitimately say, I don't think Meet Me in St. Louis qualifies as a Christmas movie because Christmas is only in it for the last 20, 25 minutes of the story, and the
Hmm.
vast majority of the film has nothing to do with Christmas. Totally legit argument. I happen to disagree. I actually think it is a Christmas movie, but that's fine. So uh, anyway, I feel like this idea makes it more fun to watch movies of all sort that have Christmas in them around the holiday because it's a fun debate. People
Yeah.
get sick and tired of Die Hard, but
Yeah.
when people are arguing over any movie, whether it is or isn't a Christmas movie, they're simply arguing different definitions. They're coming with different definitions to the argument.
I'd like them to start arguing about new films like Mine Item Mods, or which I say is because he specifically wanted to film in Clermont-Ferrand when it was at Christmas time. And then, which So that's just my personal take. And then Ghostbusters 2 is set during the holiday season.
Yes, it's set during the holiday
Yeah,
season.
I probably just lost all street cred.
Well, I mean, actually, what's actually an interesting thing is I consider Die Hard to be a Christmas movie, but
Mhm.
Die Hard 2, which is also set during Christmas, I do not consider a Christmas movie. So people can watch them and see for themselves if they want to.
I'll do a double feature. All right. Well, it has been a pleasure as always. Anything else you want to add in addition to the definition? I think it's a fun thing to argue, and people get so up in arms, but it's just fun. So
I think that in this era where there's so much fractured screening of films, on streaming services and different devices, and
right,
the theatrical movie going is so down, and it takes a really big event movie like Wicked Part 2, which just opened, had a
right,
huge weekend. It takes movies like that to really bring people to the theaters. I really suspect that even with all the Hallmark Channel Christmas movies that are being made every year, which are a different genre, they're a different category in my mind. I still think that there's room for a new Christmas movie to open in theaters and capture the imagination of audiences like Elf did in 2003 or
right.
Love Actually. It has been a while since there really was one that hit on that level. And I thought there'd be one coming out of the pandemic because
Mhm.
we were also isolated and Christmas movie would bring people together, I thought, in a way. But no one made one, or if they did, it didn't really work. But so I think they will continue.
Well, I appreciate your time. And so it's been such a pleasure. Where can people find you if they want to follow you?
You can find me on Facebook. Um, I am still on Twitter or X, although I really hardly ever use it, and I don't really know how much longer I'll be on there. But I am on there as JT_ARN.
All right.
So
Well, thank you so much.
thank you, Jessica. Great to talk.